Hey, what's up, guys? You're listening to the Build Your Vision podcast, the podcast that gets you where you always wanted to be, because every visionary needs a plan. This is episode 67, and on today's episode, I have with me Lois Peters. Lois Peters is a successful entrepreneur in the healthcare sector. She's an activist, she's a philanthropist, she does a lot of things, but most of all, she's one of the sweetest people I've ever talked to, and her vision story is absolutely incredible. It blew me away. I learned so much from talking to her because I went into this interview with pretty much a cold slate. I didn't really know a lot about her. I just knew that she had been doing some great things. So I was just as blown away when you're going to hear me reacting to it in this episode. And I'm sure you will be as well. I'm sure you will learn something. And please let me know if you get any value from this episode. Screenshot it on your phone. Let me know that you are listening. Tag us at Build Your Vision Pod. You can listen to this episode on all different types of platforms. Subscribe on whatever it is, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, whatever it is. Subscribe and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts if you're listening on there, if you can, to let other people know how you like the show, and also to give me some feedback to go off of on how you like the show. That's it for me, man. We're going to get straight into this episode with Lois Peters. And also, if you notice something about the intro that's different and you like it, let me know as well on Instagram. DM me at Clee.Davis and let me know what you think about the new intro music.
Loading.
Extra, read all about it.
It's a case study for success.
Be teachable.
What better way to learn than to just ask?
The learning process becomes a journey.
Turning dreams into reality.
What is the thing that you know you should be doing, like somewhere deep down amidst like all the excuses and all the lying layers of reality that we talked about on top that aren't actually your life?
If this is all I have to do to like get to the places I want to go to, just like act like I'm supposed to be there and like have the supreme confidence, I do that everywhere I go.
What path do you want to take in order to improve?
Do it.
It was all I thought about and dreamed. Like I would literally get up in the morning, practice, because I knew the time would come.
Study what these other people are doing.
Whether we've consciously realized it or not, we all have a vision of what we want our life to look like.
Mentors to expose you to things that you otherwise wouldn't know.
That's what Build Your Vision is. That's what this podcast is all about.
I'm originally from Jamaica, West Indies, Mandeville, Jamaica. What it was like. I grew up in a very loving home for the children and a very warm church family. As a child, we were in church every Sabbath, and the pastors, we traveled around with them singing, and anytime they needed somebody to recite, they would grab my sister or me, or both of us, and we'd be gone, whether it's a harvest program or some function, dedication of a new church. We traveled with the pastors, so we became a part of the core of the church and felt very, very blessed, to be a Seventh-day Adventist. In addition, my dad, I call him a businessman. You see, my dad, I tell the story all the time about why I went into entrepreneurship. My daddy didn't make a lot of money, and in Jamaica at the time, they didn't allow you to purchase a car if you didn't. They didn't allow you to get your driver's license if you didn't have a nice car. What? And because you had to have a nice car in order to get a driver's license. And because of that, he couldn't get one because he didn't have a nice car. So you know what he did? He started a driving school.
Wow.
He started driving school. He didn't have any license. With the old car, the old beat-up car that he had, he started a driving school. And he ran that driving school until he got enough money to buy a nice car so he could get his license.
Wow.
That's my background. So I came from a praying family,
right,
a God-fearing family, loving family. I came from a church who loved its young people, loved us, who utilized our services. My mom always had a poem in the background. She always had us learning poetry. So whenever the pastor needed us, we were gone. And I had a father who was in his own way an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It wasn't called that back then.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It seems like it was like in your blood to have that kind of problem solving mentality.
Yes.
Okay. So growing up, did you go to high school in Jamaica as well?
Yes, I went to West Indies College High School. It's the Adventist high school in Mandeville, but it was called West Indies College. You didn't, after elementary school, you went to college, but it really was high school.
Right.
Yes, and that's where I went to school. And my story really is bigger than I even knew, because I didn't realize how long I was in high school. I actually spent 8 years in high school.
8 years?
8 years in high school. We had a 5-year high school. I started high school at 10. Okay. I won a scholarship, and I was pretty bright. And we do start earlier in the we're under the bridge system, and so I started at 10. But by the time I reached the fourth year, my parents had separated, and from there everything just went downhill. And I think now that I look back, that I suffered from depression, except they didn't see it as that. And I ended up spending 3 years in the same form. So after spending 6 years in high school, my mother came to America and she sent for us. And when we came, all of a sudden it was a new beginning. And I went to public school, Jeremiah Burke in Boston, for the first time. And when I arrived, they hadn't had the money to pay the tuition off back home. So I had to go to this public school, and they couldn't send the transcripts. So I'm now 16, because I started at 10.
Right.
And so they put me in 11th grade. So I did 11th and 12th and did very well, because I knew all the stuff that they had been teaching. I just couldn't reproduce it back home. So I spent a total of 8 years in high school.
Wow. Well, at least you graduated technically on time.
I graduated with my peers.
Right.
Everybody was 18.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Okay. And you graduated with, from high school.
High school, I went to Atlantic Union College up in Boston.
Okay.
Outside of Boston. And I did the nursing program there, and that's a whole nother story. I spent 4 years in college and graduated with a 2-year degree in nursing. Because I had no transcripts from West Indies College High, and so the GPA that I went with was from the 2 years at the Jeremiah Burke High School in Boston.
Right.
I ended up doing the pre-nursing program. And that would be a 3-year program at West Indies. But I have to tell you this. Because we were new from Jamaica, we didn't know anything about ACTs and SATs and stuff, so I took none of them. So when I was ready for college, I applied to Princeton and Stanford and Yale.
With no ACTs.
And all of these Ivy League schools and AUC. So I got accepted at AUC.
Wow.
And I tell this story because a lot of times as people see us now, they think everything was just wonderful.
Right.
That everything was very easy. And they don't realize that I was just like any other child going through whatever difficulties that a child goes through. And that God in His mercy paddled us through, took us through to where He wanted us to be. So yes, I did end up, so I did the 3-year program. And then it was a time when things weren't as honorable with people that look like me. Mm-hmm. And I had a teacher who said, I asked for a box of milk, and we say cartons here. This is America. Mm-hmm. And we heard you ask somebody to turn off the pipe, and we say faucet here. So I ended up repeating the first semester of Fundamentals of Nursing. Fundamentals of Nursing was only offered first semester of your the nursing program. So after doing pre-nursing, starting the nursing program, I repeated Fundamentals of Nursing. So now I had to wait another year to start again. So I ended up spending 4 years in college for a 2-year program. And graduated
that was just because you said things differently?
Yeah. Oh, it was. We're talking about 1971.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. That's some of what went on back then. And so we, but still, Jesus.
Yes.
Jesus dreamt for me. And then He fulfilled the dreams for me. And I finally got my bachelor's when I turned 61. That was 2014.
Really?
Yes, that's when I got my bachelor's.
You got your bachelor's in 2014.
And so between 1975 when I graduated and 2014, I did everything in life I've ever wanted to do and didn't get my bachelor's. I even got an honorary doctorate in between that time.
Yeah.
I got a second honorary doctorate a few weeks ago. But yeah, everything I did was with that 2-year degree.
That's Incredible.
That's Jesus. That's just plain Jesus.
So you wanted to be a nurse.
I wanted to be a nurse.
Did you ended up becoming a nurse?
Yeah, but I didn't want to be a nurse until I came to America. And when I came to America, I went to this public school and I saw the kids with a white uniform over their arm going someplace after school. I said, where are you going? I said, work. I said, where do you work? I said, nursing homes. And so I went home and opened up the telephone pages and found nursing homes and called them. And after calling them every day for about 3 weeks, they hired me. 3 different ones hired me. And that summer, I am now 6. I'm just turned 17. That summer, I worked 3 full-time jobs. I worked 7 to 3, Monday through Friday, 4 to 12, Monday through Friday, and Sabbath and Sunday, I worked 16 hours, 7 a to 11 p at the third job, both days. I bought a house for my parents that summer. I was only in America 7 months, and I bought a brand new car without a cosigner at 17. And I didn't even know I didn't realize the time frame until somebody was trying to write my story a few years ago, and I realized that I met my husband in 1970, November of 1970, and we were in the house that we bought. It was a 5-bedroom, 1-bath house, big, old, over 100 years old, and it had an apartment in the basement that the rent would pay the mortgage on the house. I was 17. I had been in America 7 to 8 months because we arrived here October 26, 1969. And we bought it in the summer of 1970.
I'm trying to fully understand this. Like, wow. Okay, you were in America for 7 months. You worked 3 full-time jobs.
That summer. And I had never worked a day in my life before.
So you worked day,
evenings,
night.
Slept at night, got up and went back. 5 days a week. And then did 16 on Saturday and 16 on Sunday at the third job. And when I went to buy the car, the man said, I brought my mom for a cosigner. And he said, any 17-year-old who works 3, and she called all of them in front of me to verify. Any 17-year-old working 3 full-time don't need a cosigner. So they sold me a brand new car at 17 without a cosigner.
Wow. And that was that just normal for you? Like you just...
I don't know whether it was normal because I had never worked a day in my life. And remember, I just came out of an island where I had spent 6 years in high school for a 4-year program. I had repeated one class 3 years. So I had just come through a depressive disorder in my head. As an adult, I look back and see, I didn't realize what was happening to me. And I think that when I got to America to my parents, it was like, well, people work. Okay, I can work. And I can help my mom, and I can take care of my mom. And so I never even wanted to be a nurse. I thought I was going to be an accountant when I was in high school. It was that experience of working in the nursing homes that made me go into nursing.
Wow. That's just I'm thinking about the 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds today. I don't know if you could. I don't know how much you have to pay them to have them work that many hours a week. I mean, just the sheer work ethic that did. And what do you think working all those hours and then going to college and then going into your career? How did it affect you in some way? Did it build some type of trait or anything like that?
Well, I think that the independence that it gave me, my goal, I think, was to make sure that I helped my mom. My mom worked cleaning floors, and I watched her wash people's clothes and take the money and tied it to the strap of my slip and send it to school so my tuition could be paid because she was the one that wanted us to be in school. And my poor dad, he came from a background where education for girls was not necessary, so that's how he thought. And she thought, then I have to make sure my girls get an education. So I watched her struggle. And so in the back of my head, I think that was my goal, to do whatever I could to make sure my mom wouldn't have to work like she did in Jamaica.
Right.
And she came here as a domestic helper, and she sent for us.
Wow. And Did you ever notice any type of difference or disparity from your peers at that time?
I didn't notice anything other than they didn't like me, so I got beat up in that public school that year because we were so different, I guess. But I never had time to look at peers to compare anything.
I guess not.
I just worked. The one thing I did, I met Leroy, my husband now. I met him that November of 1970. We had been in the country for a year, and I met him. And so he would drive me back and forth to work every day. That's how we dated. Kept us out of trouble. That's a joke I tell. It kept us out of trouble. He'd pick me up and take me to work, and especially on the weekend, and pick me up at night and take me home, and in between. Yeah.
Wow. And all this happened within a matter of months, which is incredible. It clearly shows that God had a plan, and he needed to happen at that point in time right then.
That's true.
And how did you meet your now husband?
We were at choir rehearsal Friday night. Because some Friday nights I didn't work. Well, actually, it was winter, so I didn't do that. The 3 jobs was in the summertime. Mm-hmm. So we were in choir rehearsal, and he was in the back of the choir. He and my sister chatting because she sang alto, and he sang tenor, and I was a soprano. And they were talking too much, and so my little brother, Jason, was laying across my lap. He was 6 years old. And I said, "You boys need to be quiet back there." And he said, "I'm going to get you." And I went, I looked, there's a thought, that he was talking back. Mm-hmm. And afterwards, the next Sabbath morning, he came to church, and as I was coming out, we had a little stoop where the pastors would stand to shake the hands of the members as they came out. And he stood with the pastors as I was coming out and kind of just used his back and backed me into the wall so I couldn't go down the steps. And I was quiet because I'm wondering, what's wrong with this boy? And I kept pounding him in his back, and he just didn't move. He was shaking the people's hands with the pastors. And when my father came, he said, "Brother Allen, I have your daughter behind her. Can I have her?" And Daddy said, "Yeah." And I went. So anyway, I went downstairs, and I after he let me out, mm-hmm. I came down the steps, went to my car, and I looked back up and saw him. I said, "Oh, he's kind of cute." And so I went home, and Daddy came back to AY, and then he called me, and he said, I was going to sleep. And he said, "Lois," he said, "the young man that back to you in the corner this morning, he's out here waiting. He's wondering where you are." I got in my car and drove back to AY, and the rest is history.
Wow. That's incredible. That's a great story.
And then we dated for 2.5 years. I got married at 20.
Wow.
Yes, so there are lots of things that happened working for 3 years in Massachusetts at the hospital. Anyway, we moved to Maryland. And when we moved to Maryland, I came to Washington Adventist to work. And one day while working at Washington Adventist, I heard that the new hospital was being opened at Shady Grove. And I applied for the supervisor. They needed a resource nurse, a hospital supervisor. And I applied, and after lots of different conversations, I ended up getting the job to supervise, to open the hospital. So I brought in the first patient.
Wow.
And hired the first nurse that worked at Shady Grove in 1979. And watched, and I stayed there for 6 years. I opened the pediatric unit. Eventually, from supervisor of the hospital, when I just wanted to work days, I opened the pediatric unit there. And then I got sick. I lost a baby. Mm. And so I couldn't work for 6 months. During that time, I called some of the people who used to come to Shady Grove to market for nursing. They wanted to send their nurses there for the float pool. And I called one of them, and she hired me because I wanted to work part-time. And after she saw my background, she said, "I want you to come marketing with me." And we went over to Walter Reed to talk to them about their babies. And that day I knew I was going to open my own agency. And it was such a fascinating experience saw her presenting to the doctors and about what we do. And after that, somebody asked me, could I help them, because they had a friend who had a child that needed care and that the agency wasn't doing what they're supposed to do. I took $30 that I had to buy food, went out and got some cards printed, started handing them out, took that person's child, called up my friends and said, I need you all to come help me. If each one of you give me 2 days, you can keep your full-time job. And that's how I started, without a feasibility study, without a business plan, I didn't even have copier and paper. I went up to the 7-Eleven, but we used to have these copier paper that it was a blue, I forgot what it was called, but you write on it and it would copy it. I forgot. Carbon copy paper.
Yes.
The carbons. And I went and bought a stack of carbons. That's how we wrote our notes, so we could have copies. I mean, it was just, that was 1986 that I opened. And we became the largest pediatric agency in the state. I helped to, they called and consulted me when they were writing the regulations for the home care agency, private duty nursing agency in the state of Maryland.
Wow.
And, I have done, And so we got very large, and we sold our company in 1994. And I had a do not compete clause for 5 years. And so during that time, I purchased my first senior assisted living home. And after that, I purchased 7 more. So I had a total of 8. And then the company I sold to went bankrupt. So we got that pediatric agency back for free. And after that, I consolidated some of the homes. So instead of 8 5-beds, I then had a 13-bed, a 12-bed, and an 8-bed.
Wow.
So we have both agencies.
And what was going through your head when you started the pediatric agency? Were you just like, I'm going to figure this out as I go along?
Yep. I figured if God gave me an idea in my head, he already has a plan to. So I figured, yes, I was going to figure it out as I go along. I mean, I don't think it could be done today, but back then, I was using my home phone, and somebody called and said, we understand you're using your home phone as a business. And I said, yeah, what phone do I use? And she said, well, you need to bring $100 down here and to turn it into a business phone. So I got up, got dressed, got the address from her. I took the $100 to Baltimore, and they turned it into a business phone. And I came back and somebody, well, you need a special license. I understand you're doing such and such, and you need a license to do that. Well, what kind of license do I need? And they told me either a home health care license, but you needed a certificate of need for that, and they weren't giving any out, or a nurse register license. I said, well, where do I get the nurse register license? They told me to go to the labor board. So I went down there, filled out the papers, got it all the people who needed to sign for me, and got the nurse register license, and adjusted what I was doing to fit the regulations for the nurse register license.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, let me tell you what's funny. My girlfriend heard that I was doing this, and she said, "Lois, you have to do a feasibility study." And they had just finished law school, and so she said, "Me and my other friends, 2 other friends, will do the feasibility study for you." And they did, and they came back 90 days later and said it's not possible to open an agency because there's a moratorium on certificate of needs, and these agencies cannot be open. By this time, I knew I would do over $1 million the first year. In that 90 days, we had done over $350,000. So we were well on our way to do $1 million. But the feasibility study came back saying that it wasn't possible. So, you see what I think of feasibility studies.
Right.
It has its place. So they told me it wasn't possible. So since I knew that we were well on our way, we just kept going. So I didn't fast forward 5. That was 1989. That was 1986. So we ran that company until 1994, when we realized that we never had a business plan. So the insurance companies weren't paying us. We didn't have anybody doing collections. And because the company was doing well, we were riding on whatever money came in. That's what we we dealt with, and we ended up ready to close because as we grew, then the cash flow started getting bad. And somebody came along, and the Lord sent somebody and bought the company from us. They just came out of nowhere, asked us if we want to sell. We sold the company, and 5 years later, and we had a 5-year do not complete call. Do you know? We bought the senior homes 5 years later. That company went bankrupt, and we got the company back for free. Basically, got the company back for free because while the company was gone, the clients started calling my people and saying, "Where is Mrs. Peters? We're left out here." And I said, "Well, if they call me, I will reopen." And they called me, and I reopened.
Wow. Wow. So, throughout this experience of building the vision that you have, even though it sometimes comes unexpectedly, you go through ups and downs. Sometimes we don't talk about the downs. Everyone thinks everything just went, whoo, it just went great. What were some experiences that you had that weren't so good, or things?
When just before we sold, here our payroll is $100,000 a week, and there are people outside, and there is no money, none at all. And we're praying, and my friends would come in, and I remember Dawn Davis. She was alive then, and she came to visit me, and she just held me and sang Jesus Say Come to the Water and Stand by my side. I know you're not worthy, but you won't be. I'll never forget the song, because the peace that it gave me, and my nurses, they understood, and eventually everybody was paid. But trying to get our monies from the insurance companies, not making payroll, checks bouncing. Oh my God, that last period of time. So when we reopened the second company, that's the first thing we did. We brought a consultant and said, "How do we not make this mistake again?"
Right.
And they showed us how the people who pay the most are the ones who take 6 months to a year to pay you, because you don't have somebody to stay on top of them. While with the clients, the state clients who pay the least, they pay every week. So take more of them and a smaller percentage of the higher paying clients. And that's what we did. And we didn't run into that problem anymore.
Yeah. I can only imagine the stress. And
oh my gosh.
Oh man. Running a business is it's so hard because everything falls on you.
Yes.
So literally, if you're going to pay other people to feed their families, it's on you.
Well, one of the things that we learned when we were setting up to open the second company, the consultants that came and said, you pay yourself first. You can't make good decisions to pay anybody else if you don't pay yourself first. And that's what we did. That's what we do with the second company. You pay yourself first. If you're stable, then you can think straight and you can make decisions. You're not flying on the seat of your pants. You make sure you have a business plan. You know where you're going in comparison to how we did it before.
Right.
See, entrepreneurs are not necessarily business people. You've got to surround yourself with business people, and it does make a difference.
And when you say pay yourself, does that mean pay the company or pay?
No, we have salaries.
Okay.
We're salaried people with taxes, with the whole thing. The other thing that I think God blessed me with when I was opening, a lady who ran another company said, the one thing that lets black businesses fail is taxes. She says, always use an outside group to do your payroll. So when payroll taxes are taken, it goes straight to the state. That it's not something that you keep and play with. And so we used one of the major paychecks, and there's another one that we used at one time, where you use outside sources. So we never had a problem with people's money because with the taxes. What she said, if you open a company, use an outside group to do your payroll. That was a good thing that was told to us.
And what's probably your greatest success so far on your journey in life period?
It's all the people. When we sold our company, there are many nurses out there who were trying to open businesses. Well, just before we sold, and we would give them. I gave them copies of my policies. I I gave them while the nurses working for me, anyone that wanted to open a business, I'd give them copies of whatever they needed. So when we sold the company and we came back, we didn't have to go looking for stuff. There were so many people out there that would help us. I didn't have to rewrite policies. I could go back and ask, and they would help me. Mm-hmm. And nobody took patients from me. After I reopened, I didn't have to worry about somebody stealing patients and stuff because I had helped so many people open companies.
Wow. So you're also kind of like an educator or a mentor,
I'm a mentor.
Mentor.
I'm a mentor. Whatever I have, if somebody needs it, whoever needs it first, I give to them. I've never charged anybody for consulting with all of the work that I've done, whether it's in the senior homes or the pediatric home care agency. I've helped a lot of companies and I've never ever charged anybody.
Wow, that's incredible. And I always ask this question. I always am amazed at some of the answers that I hear because it's just a question that people don't hear that often. And actually, no, I'm gonna say one more question, then I'll get to that one. If you had a time machine and you could go back, however many years you wanted to go back, and you could see the old Lois Peters, what would you tell her now, knowing what you know now?
I would congratulate her for loving her mate and her children and giving them Jesus, because when everything goes down with all of the stresses of running a business and stuff, we stayed together because we had a God and a church family. And I think that is my one success story. All of the things that people say that I've done and stuff, the one success story is that my children love Jesus, my family loves Jesus. So that's what I would tell her. I don't know that. I also look back and love the fact that at my busiest time, I took 1 week in the month where my husband and I could go away and just out of the country. We flying these little cheap fears, and that was our tune-ups. Once a month, we would go away. Because I was so busy during the week running the company. It was so different for him because he had a full-time job at the General Conference. And I, 24 hours a day, it seemed, was taking care of these babies.
Right.
So that's what I tell her.
Wow. That's actually the first time I've heard that type of answer before. I've never heard an affirmation. Really? I've always just heard advice, don't do this, or make sure you look out for that, or don't stress. That's the first time I've actually heard that. That's good. That's actually really good. And here's the question. If you had a billboard, let's say sponsored by you, and everyone on 29 going down could see this billboard, what would be the message that you would want the world to hear?
If God gave you an idea, He has already made a plan to see it through. Move forward.
That's good. No one's ever responded that quickly either. Everyone's like, I don't know. Wow, okay.
Yeah, just move forward. He already has it worked out for you.
Wow.
If it came in when you have a connection with God, if it came in your head, it didn't just come in your head. He prepared a table before you in the presence of enemies, and then He anointed your head with oil. Your cup runneth over. Move forward and see how He will. Just keep moving. If He doesn't want you going that way, He'll block it and send you the other way. Mm-hmm. Just don't wait for, people come to me and they'll spend weekends for me to tell them about how to start with. Well, they want to set up an office first, and they want to set up this first. I've got to have enough computers, and we got to. You haven't made any money.
Right.
So everybody wants to. You can have a business plan, and you can have money put in the business plan, but part of why young people are able to move forward is because they don't know all of the negative things that are ahead of them, and they don't need to.
Right.
Because at this age, if I was to start a business now, I have so many experiences of, I better not do that because that might happen. Better not do that.
Right.
When you're young,
it's just blind optimism.
Just move, move forward. Yeah. God's given you something, and no matter. And the other thing that is different from what the world tells you, not to tell people anything because they'll steal your idea. But if God gave me an idea, you steal it, then He wanted you to have it. So I tell, because you know what? People like to help you. So why are you reinventing the wheel? If I say to you, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this. Oh, well, I have a friend, and he did that. Maybe he had some leftovers. Or maybe let me let you talk to some. That's what happens when you share your ideas. You might not want to share the detail of it. Yeah, I'm thinking of doing so and such and such. I'm just trying to collect data to see how I can get it done. You will get all kinds of help when you share.
Right.
This secretive stuff don't work. That's what I say.
That's good. I think the world needs to hear that.
Yes.
That's it. You can wrap it up. That was great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm honored.
It's going to be a good episode. It's going to be a really good episode. Thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Wow. Wasn't that an incredible story? I mean, you just never know the story that is behind someone's success. You really don't. And I learned so much from her story and what wisdom she has acquired over these years of building multiple great businesses and also just becoming a great, incredible person on this planet Earth. If you enjoyed the episode, let me know if you like it. Send me a DM on Instagram. You can message me on LinkedIn. All those things will be in the show notes. Leave a good rating and review if you liked it as well. You guys know the drill if you listened to this before. That's it, guys. I will talk to you guys on another Friday episode. I have something special planned for you that I think you will be able to benefit from. But until then, like always, keep building your vision every single day. Peace. Hey guys, Clee here. Thanks so much for listening to the Build Your Vision podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I would think you did if you stayed all the way to the end. The best thing that you could do to help support this show is by sharing it with somebody. By you just taking a few seconds to recommend this show to somebody, you are making a huge impact, not only on the success of this show, but possibly on that person's life.